Hello everyone. In this session, we want to discuss Network Policy Server known as NPS. Previously, we have been looking at VPNs, dial-in servers, direct access servers, and we looked at how we would configure those servers to allow remote access to the corporate network. Network Policy Server will take care of network access, but it does it centrally. It takes care of the authentication of the network clients. It takes care of authorization, and it even configures health policies for client computers accessing your corporate network. So whereas before we would have configured a VPN server or we would have configured a dial-in server, and clients are going to access the corporate network using these servers, what network policy does is to bring all of these access servers together. And if you send a request, let us say that you wanted to connect to the corporate network with Network Policy Server, your request is going to come to one of the servers, either a VPN or Radius, because with Network Policy Server, we can have different types of access servers. And the access server, the VPN or the dial-in server, will then send that request message to the Network Policy Server. And the Network Policy Server will evaluate that request. Because on the Network Policy Server, you are now able to configure different types of policies, and these policies centrally manage network access. Let us take a look at how the whole thing fits into one picture. In this diagram, we have access clients. These access clients are the client computers that want to access your network, your corporate network. These are outside of the corporate network, and we refer to them as access clients. The access clients will send what we call a connection request to the access servers. And the access servers are here in the middle. They can be configured as a dial-in server, a VPN server, can be configured as a wireless access point, 802.1x switch. The point is that the client computer is going to send a request to any of these servers that have been configured as dial-in, VPN, or any one of the others that you see here. And when the access servers, and please note that we refer to these access servers as Radius clients. Don't get that mixed up with the client machine itself. These are servers that have been configured as VPN, dial-in, and so on. So you might see them referred to as Radius client in your exam or as access servers. So the client then sends the connection request to the access servers, any one of these access servers, depending on which one they're connected to. The access server, when it receives that connection request, creates what we call an access request message. And it sends that access request message to the Network Policy Server that we see down here. And this is a Network Policy Radius server. Now on your network, you need to have a domain controller, and you also need to have an SQL server, because when that message is sent to the NPS server has to check Active Directory to see if that client computer exists in Active Directory. It also has to keep a copy of the connection request in the SQL server. So the SQL server will have a database, and that database is going to contain information about the client that is accessing the corporate network. It's going to have information about the duration. It's going to have information about the time that connection to the network stopped. All the information about the connection is going to be placed in the SQL server database. The network policy server itself will have policies that have been configured, and these would be authentication policies, authorization policies, and also health policies, because the server, the NPS server, can also be configured as a network access protection server, and this server has health policies such as policies that dictate that the client computer must have all the updates, must have an antivirus program installed. Once that network policy server evaluates that access request message, then it sends back to the Radius client server or access servers either an access accept message or access reject message. Now, if a client made a connection request and that request was sent to the NPS server, the NPS server will check its policies and see if the policies that have been configured for that NPS server relate to the client computer that's coming in. For example, NPS server might say, well, you have to have a certain authentication protocol, or you need to have antivirus program, or you need to comply with any of the policies that were set out. If that client computer does not comply with the policies, then the NPS server can reject that request for connection. The first thing we need to do is to install the NPS Role. So we're going to do that now. To begin installing NPS, we want to click on Manage, Add Roles and Features. On the Before You Begin screen, we want to click on Next. On the installation type, click on Next. On the Select Destination Server, click on Next. And for the Select Server Roles, we want to click on Network Policy and Access Services and Other Features. Let's pause a moment to look at the description of the Network Policy and Access Services. Network Policy and Access Services provides Network Policy Server, Health Registration Authority, HRA, and Host Credential Authorization Protocol, HCAP, which helps safeguard the health and the security of your network. We want to click on Next to continue. On the feature page, we want to click Next. And we want to pause at the Network Policy and Access page here. And again, we have a description of the network policy and access services. And we have the things that we need to note. Now, we can deploy NPS as a remote authentication dial-in user service known as Radius. We can also deploy it as a proxy server and as a network access protection policy server. When we have installed the network policy services server, then we will use the wizard to configure NPS from the home page using the NPS console. NPS server can also be configured as a network access protection server. And network access protection helps us ensure that computers connecting to the network are compliant with your organization's corporate policy for client computers connecting remotely into your organization. We want to click on Next to continue. And you have the choice here of installing the network policy server, also the Health Registration Authority, which works with the network access protection, and also the host potential authorization protocol. For this session, we're going to be just installing the network policy server, so we want to go ahead and click Next and install. Once the install has succeeded, we can go ahead and close. Now we want to go to the role that we installed. So we want to click on Tools, Network Policy Server. This is the console that we're going to use to configure the different access servers. Let's just look at some of the tabs we have here on our left. We have the Radius clients and servers. We can configure Radius clients and Radius servers here. We have the policy node where we can configure the policy. We have the network access protection node. We have the accounting and we have template management. And when we are configuring the NPS server, all of these nodes will have wizards that allow us to configure different access servers, different policies, accounting, and so on. We also have here the configuration for the different types of access servers. For example, let's click the down arrow here. We can configure the network access protection server. We can configure Radius server for dial-up or VPN. We can configure Radius server for 802.1x wireless or wired connections. And in our next session, we will take a look at configuring some of those access servers. This is the end of our NPS installation, and I want to thank you for listening.